Thank you guys for joining. And hi, welcome to webinar 56. Today we'll cover ways you can connect your art with your customers through meaningful connections and purchases. I think that there is an overlap of commerce that artists can explore with their art while also coming from a very personal place and making those connections with our customers and their shopping experience is one of the ways you can definitely kind of stand out from the crowd. So we'll cover all of that. But first, I want to do some housekeeping. Just to let you guys know, my name is Lindsay and I work here at Lumaprints in the marketing department. We do these bi-weekly webinars, I would say, ranging from a plethora of topics, but for the most part, we do them on a bi-weekly basis and we cover anything from technical parts to business-focused items to Lumaprints-based topics as well. So we cover a wide range here. So if you're interested in other webinars, we have all our webinars on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe to us there. And with that being said, I also want to talk about last week's webinar, or rather our last webinar, where in there we discuss pre-press for digital creators and those who do their art through digital formats such as Photoshop and things of the like. There we kind of discussed what are the important factors you need to consider when you're creating your art on these digital platforms to make them optimal for printing purposes. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check us out on YouTube because we have it there. That's one of our latest uploads, and we'll kind of cover that a bit more in detail there. But just letting you guys know, that was our last webinar. And then speaking of the last webinar, that's when I also made an announcement that we were going to do a small kind of webinar segment. And wow, you guys really showed up. I was very surprised that a lot of people decided, hey, I want to have Lumaprints review my website and offer feedback and note some of the strong attributes I have on my site. And I think we're well over 20 at this point. So thank you guys for showing up and showing interest in this project. It's something I was thinking about for a bit, and it's kind of a two-way kind of thing where us as people who look at websites all day kind of understand what works for a website, what doesn't. With our marketing background here at Lumaprints as well, we come to understand things that work for websites and how to best bolster art to the nth degree, because ultimately you have great art. How can we make it even better and exceptional with making the framing, if you will, the framework of the website the best possible for your art. And so I'm very fortunate that a lot of people decide to submit their websites to us. So thank you guys. And we'll be keeping up the submissions until I would say tomorrow, just because there's so many entries, we kind of want to stop it. I was going to keep it to the end of September, but looks like there was more people interested in this than I anticipated. But if you guys here in the current webinar are interested, I'm going to link it here in the chat. Feel free to submit it. And just to give you guys a kind of summary of it, we're interested in creating a small segment where in which I go and review websites of our customers. There, I'll offer some insight, feedback, how you can improve what is already a great website, I'm sure. And from there, we could also highlight the strong attributes you have and how you can hone them in even further. And not only is it useful for those who are watching this webinar, but hopefully useful for the customer whose website that they've graciously, shared to us. And don't worry, I'm not going to bully anyone if you don't have like the best website. It's more of a place and coming from a place of helpfulness and also us who have seen multiple websites over the years, how can our second opinion help you? So it's definitely helpful focus and also sensitive to the ideas that everyone is starting from a certain place. Some people are beginners, some people are well seasoned in creating websites for their art. And so we want to cover the range of that. With that topic. And, it was initially going to be a small segment, but it might be a whole webinar in of itself. So look forward to that, probably most likely in October. With all that being said, I want to shift to our webinar for today and just cover, why buying art, and how we gravitate towards art can be a powerful purchasing motivator for our customers. And some people might read this as a bit cynical, where it's like, oh, so we want to create emotions manufactured just so people could buy it. Not so much. I think that a lot of art is created with the backdrop understanding that it's coming from an emotional and personable part of us when we do create these art pieces. But what I've noticed is that we're very subdued or covert when it comes to art and how it expresses emotions or experiences for the artist. And I guess for us in this topic today, we want to really go into how can we actually bolster and highlight those attributes that made this art piece what it is, so it can further connect the art to the customer and thus, the artist with their customers and the brand at large. And I hope that when you guys kind of come into this, we are under the understanding that art should never feel inauthentic. It should be true to yourself. These are just some things that I think are worth highlighting for your art and your art store. So with that being said, let's get started. Let me go ahead and share my presentation that we have for y'all today. I think starting with first, why buying art is more than just a transaction. It is definitely something where people do buy it for their home decorating purposes, and it's oftentimes used as a way for people to beautify their home. But it's also, I would say, a way to express themselves and their style. I think there's a multitude of reasons why people buy art, so I can't really encompass all of them. However, it's just not limited to how pretty a art piece is or how cohesive it is with the home. There are other factors, and these aren't the only factors, which is, just how pretty the art piece could be. And when it comes to actually making a purchase online for said art, they're looking at a vast array of art, the beautiful, the different, the avant-garde. And I think in order for you to stand above the rest, or how you can stand above the rest, by building an emotional connection with you, your art, and the customer, it only not only says to the person, your store is a place of similar styling, or I would say similar aesthetic, but it also lets them know like, hey, this is a more personable piece to either you as the artist, or it could convey to them that they could make that kind of connection with your art. And again, it's not to say that every customer that's going to come to your website is going to resonate, but how can we create opportunities for you and your art to create those meaningful connections with the person who's interested in buying art? And I think that when it comes to like the overall universal appeals, we have three parts, right? Nostalgia, memory, and mood. And I'll kind of go into these topics a little bit, but for the most part, starting with nostalgia or memory, it's one of the more powerful feelings you can create, and it's easy to create a positive experience and easy to relate to for your customers. By tapping into those feelings, you can create moments and experiences from way in the past. And by exploring those parts of your own memory or own experiences, you can kind of tap into, in the same, fashion, the memories and experiences of your customers. And I think when we are thinking about nostalgia, it's looking back on things that we longed for, things that we missed. And that's a very powerful emotion that I think, one not only has in their own artwork, but can definitely sell that pretty well to fellow customers who resonate with those emotions. As for mood, I think that creating art, as you know, can leave you to explore a range of emotions in that process of creating it. And it's no less different for the viewer in terms of the potentiality that they have to experience art that they see and the emotions that they could, experience when looking at art. I think pieces are meant to incite moods, and that mood could range between very positive things like joy to more difficult ones like grief. And how you kind of explore those emotions in your own artwork, people might appreciate it in their own home and those types of experiences and emotions. And they would want that as part of their day-to-day life because it's a mood that they appreciate. And then when it comes to self-expression and identity, I think that we as people automatically want to surround ourselves with likeness and parts of us that we want to highlight. And by virtue of us creating art for, not only ourselves, but to sell, we also give opportunities for customers to be able to express themselves and incite those specific types of identities that they relate to. And, whether it's adding fun parts of their personality to their home or showcasing aesthetic that they feel very strongly towards, customers can really connect to art through relatability and, again, likeness. And of course, when it comes to gift giving, I think, all these topics such as identity, nostalgia, and mood depending on how you decide to go about it, some of your art pieces can definitely leverage themselves as something that people want to kind of put together and give it as a gift to the next person because said emotions or said things that are evoked from that art piece is something worth sharing. So I think there's opportunities for you to highlight some of your art pieces that you feel like, hey, this encapsulates a very good feeling or something of nostalgia for a specific group of people or specific experiences. I want to be able to bolster that as a gift giving option for customers. So consider adding smaller sizes or more limited edition pieces just to help bolster that idea of like making it not necessarily just important, but also something people would want to gift to the next person. As for the psychology and connection when it comes to art and how we use it as a driving force to kind of showcase what it means to people, again, in general, we are very clear under the understanding of colors can evoke specific emotions. And, we have general ideas of it. So people will say blue equates sadness or somberness, and yellows and oranges equate to happy and joyful. And that I think is kind of a baseline of how we think about colors and how we connect to the art piece, but I think it's a lot more complex than that. And if you yourself work in certain color schemes, you might know that very well, that just because you work out of color scheme, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to evoke a specific emotion because it also needs to tie into the subject and the styling of the art piece. So, like just as a quick example, Coastal Beach, for example, where it has kids playing by the beach on the sand versus, a very bright orange and yellow piece that might have some dark undertones that might lend to a more moody and chaotic type of mood. And so I would say that I think that there is more to discuss when it comes to colors, but for the most part, there are nuances that you just need to be mindful of. And just because you might have certain color schemes doesn't necessarily mean it's conveying one emotion versus the other. As for styles, as we know, and also subject matters, there are certain subjects that bring emotions that you want to evoke, such as animals, people, young and old, feminine and masculine, and nature versus more industrial. All these subject matters can bolster a certain mood and general vibe for the art. And then whereas comes to styling, I think that is a lot more fluid and it gives you a lot more space to work with. As for the most part, generally abstracts have a bigger range of emotion, varying greatly piece by piece. As I mentioned before, coastals, you have a dichotomy between maybe a stormy blue imagery versus a bright sunny beach coastal landscape. And generally, you want to be cognizant of the emotions you evoke because it's not to say that these types of art, even though they're moodier and darker in theme, are not something that's relatable or not something that's worth selling. Very much so, they have an appeal. It's just a matter of how we want to make these pieces appeal to potential customers and how we go about that. As for kind of the authenticity when it comes to art, by being true to yourself, you can express a vulnerability and a humanness to art that is often lost in other avenues of commerce and places where it is sold. Where large commerce oftentimes lack personhood, I think you as an artist are able to kind of lean into that and highlight parts of your brand that make you, ultimately more human and more you because it's personal to you. It's a part of your identity. It's part of your, um, you know, creativity and the like. So now we'll go into the buyer's perspective. Um, I think when it comes to buyers, they're often looking for something more than it just looking nice, quote unquote. It needs to have, as we mentioned before, a piece that reflects their identity or values, something that stirs nostalgia, and art that fits into the space and complements their lifestyle. These are just, a few of the factors that customers really are driven to purchase art. And I think a couple examples could be like, I bought an art piece because, it reminds me of my hometown, or I bought this because of the moods and colors and it felt calming because that's what I need in my life or my living room. And so when it comes to you as a seller, in turn, I think there are ways that we can describe art that allows for more moments of connecting emotionally. So instead of saying something as simple as 12 by 18 abstract print, while that is very technical and it is true, there's definitely room for you to be able to build upon that and maybe create not only more verbiage around your art piece, but something to for people to be able to connect to. So it does two things. One, it amplifies SEO, or as we say, when people are searching for type of art, yours is more likely to come up if you use descriptors and words, because ultimately people are searching specific descriptors for their art. They want maybe a calm landscape, or they want something where it's a fun, whimsical art piece. So you need to be sure that, when it comes to, or you just need to be mindful that when it comes to putting descriptors for your art piece, it's not only useful to create that emotional connection, but it also in turn helps you bolster your SEO. And so as I here you could see, the difference between a 12 by 18 abstract print versus a calm abstract designed to bring balance to your living room is just a way that you can bolster your art piece in a multitude of ways. As for us telling stories and in the product listing be a bit more personable, I think we could use these types of opportunities in our descriptors and in our titles to share what inspired you, what was your process, what were the feelings you were feeling, and ultimately what was your vision. I think you don't want to kind of be covert in this aspect. I think the product description should have sizing, should have what it's made out of for the product, sure. But having a little tidbit of like, hey, I created this during a part of my life where I felt a certain way, or this reminded me of days here at this specific lake. Things like that just amplify what customers are already feeling, and it solidifies, hey, I like this art piece, but now that I know that it comes from a specific place, say, um, it comes from a lake that I grew up close by to, just lets me know that there was a vision to this. There was a moment in time that they encapsulated here that I want to share within my home. And so don't be afraid of talking a bit more about your art. And even though we're always trying to be a bit more subdued or letting the art speak up for itself, sometimes a little bit of hand holding for your customers is not going to hurt for you or the customer ultimately. And, in that turn, I think that doing all these little things, such as editing your title listings, maybe even changing up the mock-up of your um, art piece to have a bit of a more personable background, things like that, those small little factors do a lot to deepen these experiences. And when it comes to the actual customer experience for them, even when they're done making their purchase, you can go ahead and go the extra mile and make sure, like, doing some small little things. Like, again, here at Lumaprints, we always do secure packaging, but also we allow for you to add small notes to show appreciation to your customers. So feel free to utilize the courtesy, printout that we offer on a regular printer paper to leave a note for your customers, whether it's saying, hey, thank you for purchasing my art. It means a lot for you. This is a little bit about me. Or thank you for taking the time to look into my store. We appreciate it. Here's a small discount next time you make a purchase with us. These are small things that not only show that you care, but that there's, a human behind the art more than most importantly, where oftentimes we are in a world where art is feeling less and less personable just by how much there is. Um, and the oversaturation of the shopping and shopping experience. But for you, you want to create an experience, you want to create a kind of moment in time for you and your customers to kind of connect with your brand. And again, things like sharing a follow-up thank you email or sharing care instructions just lets them know that you are very in tune to the art and the art that you share. And I would say that for the most part, again, a happy customer is great, but I want to emphasize that returning customers is another value in of itself that you really can't measure because, well, we can with the way that they purchase over the years, but over time, you want to create these deep connections with customers because they're the ones who are going to be really supporting you in the long term, and they'll be bringing people in by word of mouth. And again, you want to kind of create connections time and time again. It's not something you can necessarily do overnight, but I would say start with the little things that you can do, such as updating your product titles or maybe adding in your bio to your product listing page, even if it's a small blurb of who you are. Even as easy as adding your image of you yourself as the artist on each product page just allows for opportunities for people to create those deep, meaningful connections with you and your art. And so that's about it. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. And for now, I did not see any submissions for the questions and answers, but I'll give an opportunity for people who want to ask questions, whether it's regarding this webinar or general questions for Lumaprints. You're more than welcome to ask them away. So feel free to leave them in the chat. Otherwise, I just want to give a reminder. Oh, I see someone. So someone asked, hi, is there a way to improve the quality of the printout for prints and frames? For the most part, when we're talking about the printouts that we offer them on general printer paper. So some things that we can do is one, if you do like having a note for your customers, but maybe you don't want it on printer paper, an option is that you can also purchase our fine art paper, which is on a thicker piece of paper and it's meant to be a bit more stylistic. Keep in mind that we generally print on regular printer paper, so even if the image is good and it's printed out on printer paper has its general quality for the most part. And so if you want something above that, we do offer fine art paper prints. And for example, a 4x6 like this could cost a couple dollars max. So consider that as an option. Someone asked as well, do you plan to offer acrylic prints? So we're always exploring products here at Lumaprints, so I don't want to say no, but as of now, we haven't had any movements to actually offer that just yet. And when we do, though, we'll be very happy to share that with you guys. When it comes to adding the postcard to the order, it would just be an additional purchase that will be made to your products, and then you'll just need to let us know in the special instructions that the postcard is to be going along with the other order, just in case the paper print comes out faster and we ship that out first. So just leaving a note that, hey, these two come together. This is a printout for the product, and you should be good to go. And that could be a consistent special instruction you could offer on the store settings. And then just a friendly reminder, again, if you are in the chat, I will relink it again just in case. I don't know if it shows up, but this link allows you to submit your website if you want us to offer feedback to your website, as well as note the strong attributes that your website may have. We're kind of doing a website tour of customers' online websites and stores. That way you could get secondhand feedback from us as Lumaprints. We at the marketing department have experience with websites and kind of what makes a website strong and easy for us to kind of offer that experience with you. And not only is it helpful for you as the customer offering the website, but it's also useful for people who are watching the webinar or the video. So they in turn can utilize that experience and that advice for their own stores. But that's just something that we're offering, and it has had a lot of submissions so far. So we will be closing this submission form tomorrow afternoon. And so keep that in mind. And because of all the submissions, we might even do a part two, but it seems to be its own webinar at the very least. So we'll see how that goes first. And maybe we'll do more websites from there just by the sheer volume of people submitting their websites. But we're more than happy to accept more until tomorrow, just so we can really have a lot of options to choose from and, hopefully give people a good range of feedback to explore when we do this. So it will probably most likely be for October. So keep an eye out for that video. If there are any other questions, do let me know. Otherwise, we could finish up the webinar here. Thank you guys for joining, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Bye.